Hello there, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're safe and well. In front of me I have my Daystate Wolverine, and mounted on top is the new NV400 Eagle Digital Scope from Oneleaf. Now in this video we're going to be reviewing this, but probably not in the way you're expecting. So let's roll those titles. Let's get started then. You may have seen one of these before. To give it its full title, this is the Commander NV400 Eagle 2:26 by 50 digital day and night scope by Oneleaf. It's new by virtue of the fact that this has got a reduced digital zoom on it. This is 2:26, whereas the original version that you may have seen is 4:52, I believe. Now, I'm not going to do an unboxing, just to suffice to say, I mean, this is the box that it came in. This is probably the most complete package for a scope that I've seen. Basically, you get everything in the box that you need to get started. You get your mounts, you get batteries, rechargeable batteries, you get a battery charger, you get all the tools, and you get replacement O-rings, you get an SD card. So basically you can put this on your rifle and go shoot it. You don't need to buy anything. This box, how they fit it all in this box, you open this box, it's like the TARDIS inside there, trust me. So I mentioned at the beginning that I'm going to review this in different to how you're expecting. I mean, this is a digital day-night scope, so the obvious thing is to go out at night and stick the torch on it. Oh yeah, you get your IR torch in the box as well, with a rechargeable battery. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let me explain how this came about. I got an email from Oneleaf asking me if I'd be interested in reviewing one of their scopes, and I said yes, I would. And then they wrote me back and said, well, if we send you a scope to review, how do you intend to review it? You know, what sort of line are you going to take on it? And so I had to think about it, and I'm all one for thinking outside the box. And you know, the obvious answer is oh yeah, it's a day-night scope, so we'll go hunting with it night time and use the torch on it and everything. And I thought, no, we'll try something different. We'll try and concentrate on how it performs as a day scope in comparison to a normal optical scope. So I'm going to review this basically looking at its potential as a target rifle scope, and particularly looking to see if I can use it in an HFT competition or to shoot an HFT course. So that's the way we're going with it. Now, you know, I've already discovered there's so much to this scope, there's just too much to put in one review. So I'm going to have to revisit this at least twice. I might even have to do a third video because, you know, I started looking at all the features and everything, and we're going to end up with a video that's an hour long. So, so we're going to concentrate on the day scope aspect at the moment, and what I'm going to do in this video is basically set the scope up the same as I would a conventional optical scope to shoot HFT. So let's get started, shall we? I just want to show you something that'll explain the way that the review is done later on, and that is that when you press record on the scope, what it records on the little built-in SD card is totally different to what the scope transmits out of the HDMI lead to the side. So at the moment I'm recording on the internal disc in the scope, and I'm also recording from the HDMI lead to show the differences. Now, some of the things that I can't get into the menus why this is recording. You'll see the red numbers counting up, and that's the recording time. So if I stop that recording for now. Oh no, what I will do first off, I'm going to zoom in so I show you. I'm I'm actually clicking the zoom. Now you'll see on the HDMI recording the reticle's changing size. On the disc recording the reticle doesn't change at all. So basically on the disc recording all you see is the reticle, you get no other information. If I stop the disc recording now, I can go into the menus on the HDI recording. Now you can see all this through the eyepiece, it just doesn't record on the SD card inside the scope. So bear that in mind, because obviously I've had to do some jiggery pokery at times to show you what certain things look like in order to show you how the scope works. So I hope that makes sense. Right, so the first thing then that we want to do is we want to set the focus. Now we've got this adjustable focus ring at the front here, but there's no markings on it for distances. The reason being is that we get no parallax error for this. Because you're not viewing light through a tube, you're actually viewing a little screen, a TV screen. Your eye position on the cheek piece is totally irrelevant, so you get absolutely no parallax error at all. But we've still got to set the focus to our chosen focus range, which for me, if you watched other videos, you know I generally for HFT focus to 25 yards. So we're going to switch over to the internal scope and set the focus up, and then we'll move on. Okay, so we're recording through the lens. It's recording video and audio, and there you can see we're slightly out of focus. So what we'll do is we'll start to bring it in focus, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to zoom in to try and help me set the focus. I don't want to go too far because obviously it's a digital zoom. When you get to the top end it's going to start pixelating. So what we'll do is we'll try 8 times there. Now one thing to notice is when I set up my focus on optical scopes, where my crosshairs is, those numbers there are usually sharply in focus, and then to the left of them in this little box sometimes you can even get those in focus, but you can see here that it's very difficult here. Probably we're using probably this line here on the vertical axis to line up. Let me zoom in a bit more, make some slight adjustments, and I think that's probably as good as we're going to get it. So if I zoom into 13 times now, you can see that it's starting to pixelate a bit, so it's very difficult to set then. So we'll take it out to ×5, which should be around 10 times. 10 times normal was what I'd normally use, and you can see that's yeah, that we'll have to try that and see how we get on. So I've set the focus. You can see, look, put a couple of little bits of tape on the scope there so that I can get back to that point with 25-yard focus whenever I want to. So moving on then, now we're going to check what we're going to do. We're going to check the reticle to see if the reticle spacing is correct. I've got a target set out with parallel lines that are drawn exactly 2 mil dots apart. So we're going to zoom in with the reticle. This is what I'm seeing through the scope, to see whether they line up. And I think you can quickly see that they don't line up at all. The reticle is much bigger. It's supposed to be a mil dot reticle, but at the 2 mil dots is actually lining up to the 1.4 mil dot point on the reticle. Just wanted to show you what this would look like with the scope set to the SFP option, where the reticle doesn't grow any bigger. And you can see that as you zoom up, the reticle is so small that it's just totally unusable. So SFP is not an option really if you're target shooting. Right, we're going to set the one shot 0. Now I can't do this recording on the scope because you can't get into the menus when you're recording on the scope, so we'll just be recording the monitor. So the first thing is then that you want to take our test shot to check where our 0 currently is. So I've got lined up. And you'll see, if I zoom out, oh, out, not in, you can see that there is the bullet there. So what we need to do now is we need to set our 0, because you can't set it once you're in. So we set our 0 there at 14 times, that's times 7 times 2, and we'll go into the menus, go down to shot 0 and select. Now what we need to do is we need to move the red reticle so that it lines up with where our bullet is, and keep the white reticle where we aimed. So we're going to do a little bit of x-axis first, moving it off to the right. Then I click, we switch over to the y-axis, and we're going to need to come a long way down. So I'm still turning to come down. You can see that the white reticle is very difficult to see. I think they might have been better using like a contrasting colour. But right, nearly there. Right, I think that's the Y totally on. So we're going to go back to the X. Right, now that looks good to me. Right, so what we do now to save that is we press the record button, we decide which group we want to put it in. We've got 6 groups that we can save different 0s and different reticle colours, but we're going to use number 1. So we select that, press the record button again, and you see it's gone out of zoom and we're back to the menus. So now we can come out of the menu. Oh, would you believe it? Just had a delivery, so I had to pause the recording. So we go back to this single shot 0 then. So we've done our 0, we've adjusted the reticle, we've come out of the menus, so we're back in our normal screen. So what we need to do now is load a pellet, which I'm going to do. And take a shot, see where a shot lands. So you can zoom in, adjust their alignment. Let's go back down to what we were before. Oh, that's up 13. We're going to go down to, we was on 7 before, weren't we? Yeah. Let's come up 1 to 8, 16. That's what we took the shot at. Right. We're a little bit off to the right. Let's try another shot. Yeah, just need a fine adjustment. Take the crosshairs to the left a bit more, but that's near enough. That's not bad for a single shot zero. Next thing on the agenda then is to do the holdovers and measure them against this reticle. I've got the rifle set up where I've been doing recording just in my conservatory, where I can record the monitor, sort of a lot easier than trying to do it out in the garden, which wasn't very successful when I tried it. So we're at 40 yards. So what I've done is, rather than go through the whole lot of this, I'm just going to sort of demonstrate what I do at 40 yards. And then I'm going to go on, get my proper sheet out and go through it at all the different distances, so I've got my measured holdovers. Now you can see I've switched over to a white reticle purely because down by my backstop there, you can see it's in the shade, and the red reticle just disappears, so I just thought it would be easier to do it. Oh, you've got to be careful when you switch this switch that you don't switch it too quickly, because you get ahead of yourself. You have to switch it and then wait for this rotary control, wait for the magnification to catch up with you. So anyway, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to put 3 or 4 shots till I get a nice sort of like horizontal line of pellets that I can measure against. Now some people who've seen my video about working out your holdovers have asked if it's okay to change the settings on your scope when you're working out your holdovers. Well, of course it is. I mean, you're only limited in touching your scope during an HFT competition, but outside of that, you want to use the magnification and the focus as best you can to get as accurate shots as possible. So what I've done here is I've adjusted my focus for 40 yards, and say I've set up a suitable magnification so that I can see the line that I want to aim at. So let's make a start on this then. I'll put a pellet in and see how we get on. You can see I'm trying to save the planet by reusing cardboard, so I've used the same targets that I've used early on before. Everything for the planet. So here we go then, lined up, first shot, and well, that one looks almost exactly on the quarter mark there. So let's try again. If we get another quarter, then we're on a winner. So line my shot up. I'm going to move to the side a little bit more so I'm not shooting in the same spot. Oh, that one's a little bit higher. So we're going to have to go for shot 3. I mean, obviously, not weighing these pellets, they're straight out of the tin, so there's going to be a little bit of variation. Plus the fact we're shooting outdoors, so the wind's going to have a bit of an effect on it as well. So we're not going to get a perfectly straight line. And that one's nearer the first one. We'll just do one more for luck, I think, see where that one goes. I suspect the first one probably dropped a little bit more than you would normally expect. So where are we going to put this one? We'll put this one over just to the left of the first shot. Oh, there we go. So we've got our line. So if you see there, if I move my reticle along, we're just above, I said a quarter earlier, didn't I? That's a half mark. Yeah, that's the half mark. So we're just above a half. So I would give that, at 40 yards, I would give that 0.4. Yeah, that's about 0.4. So there we go. I'm going to have to do that with this reticle. Let's just take the reticle down and make sure that we're getting the... Oh, we're going up. I want to go down to 5 times. See if we're getting the same sort of measurement. Oh.
Yeah, it's probably about the same. Go up to maximum. We're on 13 times. And you can see, yeah, it's about 0.4, just sitting above that half mark. Okay, so that's how we measure against this reticle then. As I said before, because the reticle isn't a true mil dot reticle, we're going to have to use the markings on this reticle and just ignore their true mil dot value and see where they come to. So I'm going to crack on then and do my complete sheet, and I will show you my results when I'm finished. Here we are then down the side of the kitchen at the 45-yard mark. Just finished doing the 45-yard holdovers and been having a bit of fun shooting some targets at 45 yards for a change. So let's have a look at the results, shall we? Here's my completed holdover sheet then, with all the ranges that I shot, and as I mentioned before, I had to measure against the reticle, and this is the resulting range card. So you can see all my measurements on there, where my aim points are on the reticle. So that's all done. Now we have to do, what we have to do now is test them on the targets. So I've set my focus back to 25 yards, which is my preferred focus range for HFT, and I've laid some targets out at different distances. We're going to have a look and see how usable this is for range finding by assessing how out of focus or in focus the target is. So the first target is spot on 8 yards then, and you can see I'm at 10 times magnification here. And that target, you can clearly see the kill zone quite clearly. So a little bit out of focus around the edges, but the kill zone's a lot easier to see than in most of my optical scopes. Moving up from 8, then we move up to 10 yards. Now what I'll do is I will mag back a little bit so you can get both of those in to see the differences. So I think you'll agree there is a slight difference in the focus there. You can you know, the outline of the pig's not as fuzzy, and then we move up to 13 yards, and there's a definite difference then between the pig and the squirrel at 13 yards, and then the last target is at 15 yards, and you'll see we're almost in focus there, to be honest. So there's still some potential there for these short range targets, but to be honest, for me, being able to see the kill zone that well at 8 yards, that's a bit of a revelation. So what we'll have to do is look at the longer range targets now, the 40-45 yards, and see what they look like. Right, checking out the longer ranges then. I would expect, this is 40 yards, this 35mm target, I would expect that to be still in focus. And the squirrel, although that's a 25mm squirrel, you can see that there is a difference between the 40 and the 45, so that gives us that extra knowledge. That's what I would expect to see, a difference, same difference in my normal optical scopes, so that's good. Before we go any further then, let's have a look at the rules pertaining to scopes as far as an HFT competition is concerned. And what I've got here is section 5.2 relating to scopes in the current version of the UK HFT rules. So starting at the top then, scope settings must remain unchanged throughout the event. Well, we can ensure that by taping up anything I need to, so there's no problem there. If an illuminated reticle is fitted that contains an internal auto shut-off timer, well, once you've switched the power on the scope stays powered up until the battery runs out, so that's not an issue. The objective and ocular aperture of the scope must be as it was manufactured. Well, in daylight mode, you do have that
lens cap with a sunshade on it that reduces the aperture for daylight use, but that is as the scope is manufactured, so that's not a modification, so that should be all right. Scopes containing automatic range finding functions cannot be used. Well, we've got a laser rangefinder on the side of the scope. Now I can take that off, but I don't want to really muck around with it at this stage, this early on. So what I intend to do with that is to tape up the front of it so that it can't be used. Certainly the ballistic calculator function is disabled as well in the scope menus, so that's not a problem. And finally, the use of spirit levels is prohibited. Well, what I'm going to do is shut off the cant indicator inside the on the inside screen, the eyepiece screen, so that you can't see that. So that will comply as well. I did get in touch with somebody from UK HFT, and I spoke to Steve O'Mara about what I was intending to do, just to get some advice and just to chat about it and stuff. So I'd like to thank Steve for the time he gave me. Enjoyed speaking with you, and yeah, it was very useful. The main bone of contention really was this very first line here: any single conventional style rifle scope, and I think we decided that you can't class a digital scope at the moment as a conventional style rifle scope, so that would preclude its use officially. But Steve made an important point that the UKA HFT rules is just one section of rules. You know, there are lots of clubs that use their own rules and a version of these rules. So if you wanted to use one of these scopes, then there's no reason why you can't discuss it with your club and see if they'll allow it. So that's the rules then. So here you can see the scope then ready for the competition. You'll notice I set to with my roll of insulating tape. Put some tape around the objective so that it can't be adjusted away from my 25-yard focus point. And also you can see I put a bit of card and some tape over the face of the laser rangefinder on the left hand side of the scope, just to show everybody that that wasn't able to be used, even though I didn't have any intention of using it anyway. There wasn't anything that I could do about the magnification. That had to be on trust basically, because the rotary dial, when you power the scope up, it automatically powers up in 1 times, and I would have to have access of that to actually change it to 5 times. But I did make sure before every shot that it was still on 5 times, which would be 10 times optical zoom. So that all done, it was off to the course then to shoot the comp. Well, we're down at Lee Valley Airgun Club for their monthly HFT competition, and I've got permission to shoot the Wolverine with the NV400 attached on the course. Obviously I won't be part of the comp because as discussed in the video, it's not a legal scope for UK HFT type events. So anyway, going to do a few little bits and pieces of video as I go around the course, and I'll be recording some of the shots on the scope using the record feature as well. So we'll see how it does, shall we? Yeah. Well, it looks like we're starting on peg 16, and we'll see how we get on.
Peg 17, or peg 16 rather, was a 40-yard lollipop, and I forgot to turn the recording on. So we're on 17 now. Ooh, went low. Ten shots in, 4 down. There's 2 positionals lack of balance, and 2 definite ranging errors. So we'll carry on, see how we go on. That was a donut. Oh. That's better. Right, we're 20 shots in, and the last 10 shots, if you'll probably see, have been pretty crap. The positionals are rubbish, and missing a lot of shots with no explanation whatsoever. But we'll carry on. 10 more to go, and then we'll talk about it. Now, I don't know if you're seeing this. Well, you're not going to be seeing this through what you're seeing, but all I can see through the eyepiece is black, just a black shape. So I'm going to have to guess where the kill is. I don't believe that. About time.
That's the shooting portion out of the way then. Before we go on, I just want to thank Lee Valley Airgun Club, particularly Paul Burt there, for allowing me to shoot the comp with that equipment. And also thanks to my mate Jerry for acting as go-between, and also for putting up with me as we went round the course. Appreciate that. Thanks chaps, thanks very much. So what do we make of it then? Well, I must admit I did enjoy it. It was interesting. It was I did feel a bit of extra pressure to begin with when we started the course, which probably didn't help my performance. I did notice the old heart rate was going a little bit, probably because I put a lot of stall into you know, doing the scope justice. It is a good bit of kit, and I wanted that to come across. A couple of little bits that that did come out of it. I did notice that it was at times, I don't know if it's because you know, you're shooting in the woods when light levels are not always at the sort of level that you'd need for, you know, that for sort of like digital equipment. But what I was viewing through the viewfinder or through the eyepiece at times was very grainy. The reticle is a bit thick, so on some of the smaller targets it was difficult to get you know, a correct alignment, your sight picture on the target. And I did notice, if you look closely at the recordings, you will notice that, well, I certainly noticed that the vertical line on my reticle was quite often to the right of the target rather than in the centre. When, you know, I mean, at the time when I'm aiming, unless I was intentionally aiming off to deal with any air movement, to, you know, to counteract any pellet drift. I mean, that's quite obvious on the ones that I was compensating for the drift, but for most of the time I was sort of aiming straight on, and it did look a little bit as if the reticle was a little bit off to the right, not necessarily where I would have wanted it to be. So anyway, let's have a look at the at my scorecard, shall we?
So as you can see, I scored a 46 on the day. Just to quickly go through a few things. My positional shooting, I'm usually pretty good at positionals. Perhaps it was that I was unfamiliar with this setup and didn't do enough practice with this. Well, I didn't do any practice with this rifle. So I think I only knocked over one out of 6. So that was 5 points I was down right from the start. Peg 26, the donut. Who knows what happened there? I mean, if you look closely at that video, you can see where I was aiming, and you can see that the pellet went high and to the right. So I've got no explanation for that one. Peg 5, if you look closely at that, you can see that I definitely did hit that paddle. You can see the mark my pellet made on it. So I'm going to claim that one after the event. I mean, I didn't realise, if I'd have known that had happened at the time, I would have called the target. But so I'm claiming a 47. I'm claiming I've got to make up the points where I can. And the thing about the positionals as well, a couple of guys that were following us around the course that were watching what I was doing, one guy had an idea and suggested that wondered if there was a delay between what the scope was seeing and what I was seeing in the eyepiece. Because a lot of the time, when you're shooting positionals, you can't rule out the movement entirely. So what you do is you get in time with the movement and you take your shot as your sights pass across the target. So if there's any delay between the transmission of what the camera's picking up in the front of the scope to the eyepiece, then obviously that can make your positional shots more difficult. I don't know if that's the case, but it may well be, because with an optical scope you're dealing with the speed of light, and I don't think your speed, I think that probably that there's everything moves a little bit slower than that in the electrical thing. I don't know. It might be a thing, it might not. So there you go. I guess I do have set myself high expectations really, and would have hoped to have done better than that, but I guess 46, 47 is first time out with that kit, is not a bad score really. Can't complain. Just didn't want to let the scope down really. So there we go.
Well, now that the shooting's out of the way, I guess we need to talk about pros and cons. Now, first off, let me say that that this scope is a very impressive bit of kit, and I'm guessing that it was never designed to be used as a target scope. So for it to perform so well in that function is quite a surprise. But it's as a target scope, it's not perfect by any means. So let's go through some of the little niggles and foibles that I found then using it to shoot targets, particularly on the HFT course. First off, the size of the SFP reticle. I mean, to be honest, I'd wonder, I'm sure they must be able to tweak the firmware to sort out these niggly little bits, but from a target use perspective, the SFP setting really is of no practical use at all, because the reticle, as you've seen, is just too small. So it would be nice if they could tweak the firmware and get the SFP reticle so that it looks the same size as the FFP reticle does when it's in 5 times zoom, because that's 10 times magnification, and that would transform that function as far as shooting for targets. So that's the first point. Second point is also about the reticle. It's claimed that it's a mil-dot reticle. I've measured that, and as you can see, I've shown it's not a mil-dot reticle. It's too small. It needs to be enlarged. Oh no, it's too big, is it? Yeah, it's too big. Needs to be shrunk down a little bit more. So I'm sure, well, I should imagine that is something that can be addressed in the firmware as well. I don't know, but I'll pass that back to the manufacturer. The next bit is the resolution. Now, looking through optical scopes, we're used to the pinpoint sharpness we get with good glass. Now, the problem with digital is all down to resolution and pixelation. I was using this at times 5 times zoom, it goes up to 13 times zoom, so I'm less than halfway. And already that you know, measuring what I was looking at, that was equivalent to 10 times optical mag, and already the resolution wasn't really good enough for shooting the smaller hit zones on the target, as you may have noticed in well, you may have noticed, you won't notice in the video, because the video quality is much better than what you see through the ocular. So I'd like to see, I guess in time we'll get a higher resolution screen in the eyepiece, and once the resolution is improved in the eyepiece, I mean, that will make all the difference. And then finally I want to talk about the light metering options. You saw the issue with the black target where it was backlit. Now I've had a fiddle around with the settings trying to reconstruct that situation in the garden with the light behind, and I got a fairly good representation, a close target with light behind, and you'll see the picture there, it's quite dark. And I found by adjusting the ISO setting, which I think was on auto, by adjusting that and setting it to ISO 400, I could then see the target and the hit zone. But I haven't had an opportunity to see how that would affect the rest of the course with that on that IS 400 setting, so I don't know about that. And also, when aimed at sort of white paper targets, there's a lot of sort of white balance bleed, so unless what you're looking at on the target is very sort of distinct, I mean, I tried this HFT practice target, and when you look at it through I take a photograph through the eyepiece, it's very hard to actually see the circles irrespective of the colours. If you have thick black lines, then they do just about show up. I was advised that might be down to the metering, and I went through the metering options and I changed the metering setting from multi to a spot setting, and that did improve things, as you'll see from the pictures that I show. So possibly, you know, some of the little things that I'm experiencing, by being a bit more familiar with the menus and understanding, if you're a camera buff, I mean, or a video buff, then you probably know these settings and you can work out, you know, the best metering and exposure and ISO to get the best picture. But I don't have that knowledge, so you know, I'm assessing it straight out the box. So I'm sure, like, with a bit of fiddling about, you can get a better picture with that respect than I got. But as I say, you know, very impressive really, considering that it wasn't probably, you know, nobody gave a thought to using the daylight scope as a target, a competition target scope. It really, I think, made quite a good account of itself. You know, my overall assessment is, from that point of view, as a daylight scope, it is very impressive with all the bits and pieces. And yeah, you can have, you know, if you like fiddling with gadgets, you can have great fun with it. Well, we're coming to the end of this video then. I must say, this was probably the most demanding and drawn out video that I've made so far. It was quite technically difficult to do with all the you know, recording screens and stuff like that. But one of the things I need to point out with this scope is we've really only scratched the surface. There's so much more to this scope. So what I'm going to be doing is making more videos with it. The next video that I make with this scope will be looking at the ballistic calculator and the laser range finding functions. And as part of that review of that section of the scope, I'm also going to go through how to set up your ballistic calculator properly, because I've seen other videos online, and there are little bits and pieces which I'm perhaps a little bit critical of. People haven't explained it well, or they haven't done it in the right way. So I'm going to do it the way that I've been shown to do it, which I'm assuming is the right way. When we've done it, if it's wrong, you can all tell me. You can tell me in the comments. So yeah, so that will be in the next video with that scope, and then potentially I might even do a third one and do the night vision bit. But to be honest, all the night vision stuff with that scope, I think it's already been demonstrated that it's pretty exceptional. So we'll see, we might not get that far. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you found this interesting and a good watch. If you want to see more, you know what to do, and I'll see you on the next one hopefully. So bye for now.